My name is Ashley. I'm a single mother of triplets. I'll share the story of how I became a single mother. Where are you now? You're off work already, right? When do you plan on coming home?
Don't meddle in what I do. I'm in a bad mood, so I won't come home today.
This exchange of messages was the beginning. The childish response that he wouldn't come home because his mood was spoiled irritated me. So, I replied provocatively, "Oh, going to see a new lover?" His reply made me uncomfortable again.
So what if I am? You think that attitude is okay? Do you even realize who's been supporting you and your parents? Watch your words. Thanks to me, you're not lost on the streets. Don't forget that fact. Think before you speak.
Despite his cheating, he blamed me with a surprisingly defiant attitude. I had been tolerating an unbearable extent of his affairs for over 6 months. Therefore, I decided to wait for him to come home so we could discuss our future. He never informed me if he would be late, so I had no idea when he would return. All I could do was wait. Eventually, he came home after 2 a.m. Noticing me waiting in the living room, he was initially surprised.
Ashley, waiting so nobly for once. A late night invitation, perhaps? Unfortunately, your post-pregnancy figure is a turn-off. Invite me after you've taken care of that sagging skin.
Sadly, I have absolutely no such desire, and I'm officially pausing on that. I couldn't understand what he was misunderstanding. His head was always in the clouds, hence his delusional statements. Moreover, the deterioration of my body shape he mentioned was a post-pregnancy issue, and it all started because of his lack of support in child care, making it hard for me to even go to a chiropractor for my messed up pelvis. That's why it took time to return to my pre-pregnancy weight and figure. Thankfully, I have now returned to how I was before getting pregnant. Not only was it not an invitation for the night, but my firm refusal further soured his mood.
Came back feeling healed from my lover's place, and now you've ruined my mood. I'm going to sleep.
Normally, one would realize there was a reason for waiting, but he lacked that ability entirely. I was waiting because there's something we need to discuss.
Chalk, I'm sleepy, so make it quick. Oh, if it's about money, I'm not in the mood, so no.
I want a divorce. I can't take your blatant cheating anymore. In just this half year, you've had like 5 affairs. There was even a day you saw 3 different people. You're truly despicable. His face turned increasingly pale as I hit him with the facts.
How did you know? You've been following me? That's a joke, right? That's an invasion of privacy. I should sue you.
I hired a detective. Of course, it was all illegal, so no laws were broken.
Then, where did the money for that come from? Surely not from the money I earned.
I snapped back at his words. Of course, it's my money. Your earnings wouldn't cover the investigation costs.
How? My earnings are what now?
Seriously, it's a fact. It's not enough to help with anything. Insulted by being called trivial, his face turned tomato red.
Enough. No matter how charming the woman I cheat with, I've been considerate enough not to divorce you. You've never appreciated that. I couldn't care less whatever happens to you all from now on.
Considering you cheat, I'd say there's no consideration there.
Don't get cocky.
So, will you sign the divorce papers? They're right here. All you need to do is sign. Trembling with anger, my husband snatched the divorce papers from my hand.
Just sign it, Fine. I'll give you your divorce. You'll regret this later.
With that, he scribbled his signature.
I'm doing you a favor by divorcing you. So, I'm going to set some conditions for this divorce.
Conditions? What are they?
You, your parents, and all 3 kids, all of you, get out of this house, and there'll be no division of assets, no alimony, and no child support.
Fine by me. Just get the divorce over with.
Really? Don't come crying to me later. Here, make sure this gets to the courthouse.
Suddenly pleased with my response, he handed me the divorce papers with a grin.
So, when are you moving out? Don't tell me you're asking for a divorce without having a place to go.
You seem to be misunderstanding something. So let me. He cut me off.
Don't try to act tough now. I'm not a monster. I'll give you 2 months. I'll stay away from the house in the meantime. So hurry up and find somewhere else to live.
What about your stuff? If it's left here, I'll have to get rid of it, you know?
Get rid of it? Not paying alimony or child support, and now this is your revenge? Try me.
He had no idea that this response would be his downfall. It's self-inflicted, really. So, I have your permission to dispose of it, right?
If you think you can, be my guest. Like you have the guts.
You said you wouldn't come near the house, but if there's anything you need, make sure to take it out by next week.
Yo. Thanks for the heads up.
I've warned you, okay? Despite my repeated warnings, he acted as if it had nothing to do with him.
Make sure you take all your stuff with you. Anything left will be considered trash and disposed of.
Got it. He said it was our stuff, though. I doubted he even knew what belonged to him anymore. Not my problem now.
Got nothing else to say, right? I'm leaving, as promised, to avoid coming near the house. Be grateful.
After saying this, despite having just returned to the house, he left again to go to his mistress's place. My husband, faced with a divorce request from me, had the audacity to set such unpleasant conditions. I was utterly exhausted from conversing with my delusional husband. With a deep sigh, I crawled into bed. Maybe because I was so tired, I slept incredibly well that night. The next day, the divorce papers were successfully submitted and accepted at the courthouse. Returning home, someone was eagerly waiting for me.
Welcome back. You left in the morning, and it's already past noon. Was the divorce paperwork processed successfully?
I'm home. Here's the acceptance certificate. Now that I'm officially single, I also took care of some administrative stuff.
That's why it took so long. But it looks like you'll be busy for a while, huh?
What do you mean?
This morning, I got a call about some properties that fit our criteria.
Really? That was fast. I'm so relieved.
Yes, it looks like we'll be able to find a new place without issue. Oh, and they said we could do a viewing.
Can we go check it out later today? Or tomorrow is fine, too. Better decide quickly.
All right. I'll see when we can go and let you know.
My mom then took out her smartphone and went to another room to make the call. The previous night, after deciding to divorce, it seemed impossible to be able to find a new place immediately. But thanks to my mom, it was surprisingly easy, almost anticlimactic. While waiting for her call, I decided to go to my room. But then my dad came out of his.
Ashley, you're back. Did Mom tell you about the property?
Dad, I'm home. Yeah, I just heard. We really have to thank Mom's acquaintance. And thanks for introducing that lawyer friend of yours.
We would do anything for you. So, how's it going?
Then, my husband's reply made me uncomfortable again.
Looks like you'll make it in time. Well, that's good. Tell me how it all ends up later.
With that, my dad went back to his room in a good mood. I decided to wait for my mom's call while organizing the documents for the meeting with the lawyer, and headed to my room. My husband had agreed to the divorce under terms he thought were favorable to him, but to me, they were neither here nor there. While he was busy being lovey-dovey with his mistress, and I was swamped with preparations, 2 months passed. The moment of truth was drawing near for my unsuspecting husband. 2 months after the deadline my husband had given me. I was leisurely sipping coffee when I received a call.
Hello, Ashley. Have you moved out yet? Don't start begging now if you haven't.
I moved out ages ago. Have you not come home once in these 2 months?
With my popularity, once it was known I was getting a divorce, everyone wanted a piece of me. Took me 2 months just to choose the next wife from the lot. She's right here with me now. We're on our way to our love nest.
Wow. Ignorance is bliss, huh?
Yeah. She is innocent, like you used to be. I don't have to support your rotten family anymore, so I can spoil her. I really believe divorcing you was the best decision. So, no coming back to me now.
No, I'm not thinking that at all, and even if you begged, it wouldn't happen.
You're really strong-willed, huh? It's clear you'll struggle taking care of your unemployed parents and 3 kids.
My husband continued with his delusional remarks.
If you had been a bit cuter, maybe I would have paid some alimony. Don't think of coming back when you're down on your luck. I'll be deleting your contact.
Listening to him going on and on was nauseating. Finally, I had enough, silently hung up the phone, and turned it off for good measure. About 2 hours later, thinking it was about time, I turned on my phone. There were over 200 missed calls, plus loads of messages too. Holding back my laughter, I answered the call from my husband. Hello. Finally realized.
You knew, didn't you? Explain everything. Why is the place we live turned into an empty lot?
Don't you remember? The landlord always wanted to build an apartment complex there. It was just on hold while we lived there, and they cleared the lot after I moved.
How? What's that about? I don't remember any of that. What have you done to my house?
Well, it wasn't your house. That house was a rental under my father's name.
It wasn't under my name?
My husband's tone suddenly became as faint as a mosquito's buzz, all his previous bravado gone. I don't know what you're misunderstanding, but maybe you're confusing it with the cheap apartment we rented before? Sure, I handled the rent payments back then. But when we decided to move in with my parents, you didn't look for the house or deal with the lease, did you? So, why did you think it was under your name and you were paying the rent? On the phone, I could tell my husband was flustered.
I thought. You handled the withdrawal procedure.
As if I would do such a thing without your consent. Besides, there's no way you, earning just over $2,000, could afford a place that costs $3,000 in rent.
Huh? $3,000? No way.
Yep. Seems you didn't know. Truly unbelievable. My husband started to panic.
But, I mean, no one else was working, right? And we live comfortably without any financial issues.
That's where you're hugely mistaken. I wasn't unemployed. I was on maternity leave and parental leave. And after that, I went back to work full-time.
Working? But you're always at home with the kids.
My company allows me to work from home since returning from leave. I'm sure I explained this.
Did you? I thought you quit because you were always at home.
He had been playing with his phone and only half listening when I had explained it back then. Just to clarify another fundamental misunderstanding, my dad runs his own business. You seem to think he was unemployed, but we had a casual conversation about this before we got married.
In my case, I can work remotely, so I can work from anywhere, anytime.
Maybe that was a bit confusing, but basically, I was saying I'm working remotely. Both my dad and I work properly. But in your case, since you were out working and coming home late due to your affairs, maybe you just didn't notice.
Nick.
Faced with the truth, my husband had nothing to say. He'd right on the mark. By that reaction, I'm guessing you've also completely forgotten why we ended up living with my parents. Silence means yes. We moved in together because I gave birth to triplets.
Huh? We're talking about your parents right now, not the kids.
That's the point. The reason was the triplets. Think about it. Taking care of one child is hard enough, let alone 3 at the same time. And instead of helping you,
parental leave is for taking care of kids, right? I had to work, so it was impossible for me.
And you did nothing, saying just that. I'll never forget those words. Now I realize you were too busy cheating, not working. With your measly salary, the apartment we could afford had thin walls, and I couldn't stand it when the kids cried even a little. My body was a wreck after giving birth, and I quickly became neurotic. So, feeling physically and mentally at my limit, I talked to my parents. You weren't helping at all. They immediately suggested we move in together. They consider the current situation and our future. Choosing a house with a yard so the kids could play, rooms for each of them, and soundproof walls so their voices wouldn't bother the neighbors.
I wouldn't know that if you didn't tell me.
I told you, over and over again. Before we moved out of the apartment and while we were living with my parents, that I wanted us to raise the kids together. I told you so many times.
I'm supporting your unemployed parents, for God's sake. Why should I be the only one working?
And you're into cheating out of stress, misunderstanding things on your own.
If you had told me exactly what you wanted, maybe I would have understood.
So you're saying it's my fault for not communicating properly? Unbelievably hopeless.
Now I've got no place to live, and yeah, I've reflected on that. Wait, what about my stuff?
I guess it got disposed of when they cleared the lot.
Why would you do that? What about my luxury sofa? My plush bed?
Those were bought by me. The dresser and table, Dad bought those, remember? You said no division of assets, right? So, everything my dad and I bought, we took with us. That left nothing in the house except maybe your clothes and some figures.
What? Why did you throw my stuff away? There were figures that had gone up in value.
You said it was okay to dispose of them. Plus, I told you to come get what you needed. Since you left it all behind, it just got thrown away. You did this to yourself.
Lies.
My husband was finally realizing his monumental misunderstandings, but it was too late. Further misfortune was about to befall him. He kept muttering on the phone about what to do and how things ended up like this. I couldn't bear to listen anymore and said whether you end up on the streets has nothing to do with me. Can I hang up now?
What? We were husband and wife until recently. You heartless woman.
You're the one who said you were with your new fiancé. Who's the heartless one here?
But she's gone. Disappeared while I was on the phone.
Apparently, his fiancé had run off. Anyone could see how dire his situation was after overhearing our loud conversation.
That's terrible, isn't it? Leaving without saying anything.
She must have thought she needed to escape immediately to avoid getting dragged down with him. I would have done the same.
Wait, my bag's open. Gone. The money. The bills are missing.
From the sounds and his outcry, it seems his fiancé had stolen his money and disappeared. Because he was loud on the phone, he hadn't noticed his bag being opened or the wallet being emptied. He always kept his wallet in the outermost pocket of his bag for easy access. I thought it might get stolen someday. Now, he kept muttering impossible and can't be true. Just as I was about to hang up, I heard a notification sound, probably from someone's phone messages. My husband had a separate smartphone just for communicating with his mistress. The notification sound was likely from that other phone. After checking the message, a voice of despair came through.
Sorry, I can't marry you. I've had my fun, so I'm taking a fee for my time.
What? What's happening? I've got no home, my fiancé ran off, and my job.
Speaking of which, didn't you get fired for hitting on the boss's wife?
How did you know that? Damn it. I kept that from her to avoid it getting out. Now you've ruined everything. What are you going to do about this, huh?
My husband continued with his trash talk. Looking back, I wonder why I ever married him. Unfortunately, I didn't know about his cheating before we got married. A few months into the marriage, I found out I was pregnant with triplets, and that's when his affairs came to light too. But I didn't think I could raise triplets on my own after splitting from him. Once they were born, I was too overwhelmed with childcare to confront him about his cheating, lacking both the time and the mental capacity. I had this naive idea that it's better for children to have both parents around. Since I was loved and raised by both of my parents, I convinced myself that was the best way. But as I juggled childcare and work with the help of my parents, I started questioning the purpose of having a husband around. A father who doesn't help with childcare and is constantly cheating might as well not be there at all. As soon as that thought crossed my mind, it felt like a weight was lifted off my shoulders, and I easily decided to go through with the divorce. Now, my husband is lost, having lost his home, job, and woman. Behind this forlorn husband, a battered Hiace van pulled up. He noticed the noise and looked up. He could do nothing but be shocked by the person who emerged. The story from here is secondhand. Apparently, a friend of my dad's came to pick up my husband, who was alone and screaming in the empty lot. According to this friend, when they locked eyes as he got out of the Hiace, my husband looked like he saw the Grim Reaper. And no wonder, because this friend was a cousin of my husband who works for the construction company, Heaven Group. Surprised by the unexpected arrival but recognizing the person, my husband got in the car without resistance. He was taken to the office of Heaven Group. Thanks to my dad, he was hired as an employee.
So, you're going to be my assistant. I'm looking forward to working with you.
With a big smile, his cousin offered a handshake. My husband, with fear in his eyes and a trembling hand, accepted the handshake. The cousin I knew had a rough temperament and was prone to fighting. He had beaten up my husband several times over trivial matters. The ingrained fear doesn't just disappear, even if a person is smiling. On top of that, even if he wanted to escape, he was in a situation with no home, no job, and no money. Given there was employee housing and food assistance available, he virtually had no choice but to stay. And so, my husband's days of hell began. His cousin was a site manager at a construction site, so my husband had to accompany him to the site immediately. The time was 5 a.m. Yet, this site was already bustling with people.
What? It's only 5 a.m. How early did these guys start working? Craftsmen often start work early in the morning. You'll get used to it. Come on, let's go and say hello.
Without trying to hide his irritation and sleepiness, my husband approached the workers.
Good morning. He's new here as my assistant. This guy's new to construction sites and doesn't know anything, so could you teach him the ropes?
Sure, as long as you do your job. I've got no complaints.
Nice to meet you.
Yo, thanks. But this response from my husband was just the beginning of digging his own grave.
Yo. This guy got dumped by his wife because he cheated all the time, and that's why he's here.
If you're here, you won't even think about cheating anymore. Get ready. That part of you won't wake up anymore either.
Nah.
After the greetings, while receiving an explanation of the site from the cousin, my husband wasn't really listening.
Do you even understand what being an assistant means?
Nah. If I'm the assistant and you're here, doesn't that mean I don't have much to do?
Huh? If that's what you think, then go ahead and act on that belief.
With a devilish grin, his cousin made a declaration that seemed almost demonic.
I've got to step out for a bit. You're in charge of the site for now.
What? As my husband stood there dumbfounded, his cousin hopped into his car and drove off in an instant. Immediately, as if on cue, the workers converged on my husband.
Hey, can we talk about this blueprint? There's an issue with this part here. Yeah, I thought the same when we set it up earlier. There's too much play in this part.
Escape. Play? What? You really don't know anything. Are you underestimating the construction site? My husband was nearly in tears. The workers looked tough, almost like gangsters. Surrounded by them and bombarded with terms he didn't understand, he was on the verge of panic.
Then, you'll just have to learn by doing, right? That's the fastest way. Come over here.
Yes, sir. My husband followed the craftsman obediently. It was a stark contrast to his attitude that morning.
All right, then. Haul all of this for me.
What? He thought he was just being taken to the warehouse, but in front of him was a mountain of bags.
You can't use the forklift, right? Use the pallet jack to move everything. What? Forklift? Pallet jack? Where? Wait a second.
He was completely lost with the instructions given and started to panic. But the workers seemed unconcerned and started to walk away.
Wait, please.
The workers turned their backs and left.
Please wait. I don't know anything about this site. Teach me, please.
My husband asked sincerely as he shouted this.
That's how you should ask for help. Got it? I was being arrogant earlier. I'm sorry.
Because of his haughty behavior towards the workers, my husband was subjected to hard labor from the first day. He had to follow every command for carrying loads. For my husband, who was used to desk work, the physical labor was too much. It seemed he tried to escape to his cousin who had returned from outside.
But he was met with, good timing. It's definitely easier to understand from them than me. After all, they taught me too.
My husband then realized everything. The reason his cousin had changed so much was thanks to these workers. As he worked mindlessly, the day came to an end. He thought it was over.
Just as he thought that, what? The quota isn't finished yet, so of course, we have to keep working, they said, continuing the work under bright lights.
When he was finally released, it was past 10 p.m. And so, the next day, and the day after that, the work continued from morning till evening. Even through the weekends he hoped to have off.
We're close to the deadline but behind schedule, so no breaks this week.
It was 2 weeks later before he finally got a day off. He slept through the afternoon. Such days continued, draining the life out of my husband's face. Yet, he was often seen being bossed around with a smile by the workers, as his cousin reported. When my father happened to visit the Heaven Group office, he encountered my husband speaking politely and calmly. My father almost didn't recognize him at first. My husband had indeed transformed into a completely different person. I was able to receive a substantial amount in alimony because my husband cheated with so many women. I had filed for alimony from all the women he had relationships with during our marriage. His earnings were only half of my salary. Even if I had claimed alimony or child support, it wouldn't have been enough, and there was a risk of him defaulting on payments. I didn't want to be troubled by him after the divorce, so I didn't ask for anything from him. The move went smoothly, and the new house is fantastic. It made me realize it didn't matter whether he was there or not. I decided once again that I just want to focus on my children and my job for a while.